and these are my thoughts and feelings. Well, they came out with the Scat 6, which now adds a dual task gait assessment on there, which I love, right? It's something. But keeping in mind, like the Scat 5 is only valid and reliable up to 72 hours after an injury. So like to be using that as like baseline data to then look back at later on, there's really no evidence that baseline data, even with like an impact or a C3 logic, like using baseline data doesn't truly influence clinical decision making. Because I think of like, if I do an impact, right? Okay, they've hit all of these things except one. Am I going to not return them to play because of that one thing? And is that truly indicative of, in this context, their ability to dual task and multitask on the field? I'm not really sure. The only thing that has been shown to be the most valid and reliable baseline test thus far is symptom scores, right? It's so subjective, but it's those symptom scores, because almost nobody is at all zeros. If you've ever looked at those 22 symptoms, I have probably like 10 of them on a daily, right? But that's great, because if I'm looking at an athlete post concussion and they're hitting way more than their baseline, or they look kind of just like their baseline, right? That tells me a lot more. Then it's like, oh, now all of a sudden we're having some sleeping issues, where before you just kind of were fatigued and like had a neck pain that you're dealing with every once in a while. So there's not a whole lot of great baseline testing that we can use, but diving into more of that neurocognitive skill stuff, we can really assess that afterward. And you don't necessarily need baseline testing for that. There are some normative values for reaction time and stuff for that. So we use C3 logics, which I do really like, because there's really there's some good, it's not just, they do simple reaction time and choice reaction time, which I really like. But I'm trying to get us into something more functional. Not everything needs to be functional, but there's actually, like for hop testing, there's actually a reactive kind of decision-making version of that, where you use blaze pods, light fit, whatever, where athletes have to react and do their single leg hop test based on a color that pops up. And so you can track reaction time, and then you compare that, not only like their control, like do they look like shit compared to when they don't have to react, or their distance, right? Like we've seen, some of my colleagues have done some good research on this. Like they've seen a pretty significant decrease in single leg hop distance when they add that dual task reactive component, right? And I don't necessarily need a baseline to make that determination.